And we're going to keep discussing these investments in more detail. We're now bringing on a panel. We've got George Carrillo, CEO of the Hispanic Construction Council and former candidate for governor of Oregon, and Allison Huynh, a Silicon Valley entrepreneur and managing partner of Allo Ventures. Thank you both so much for being here today. So as we just heard there, President Trump, he's saying there's more than $8 trillion being pledged since the election. He's calling it one of the strongest private sector responses in U.S. history. How does this measure up to investment levels during the previous administrations? Allison, we'll start with you.
Yes. So from big tech to manufacturing, there's this huge economic engine that is roaring back. And we haven't seen this in the previous administration because of the previous free trade deals such as NAFTA, which encourage investments overseas. And it was part of the neoliberal world order. And, we thought we would benefit from it. But after 40, 50 years, it didn't really benefit the U.S. And so this is a great reset from Donald Trump waving the tariff wand. And now, as a result, we have $8 trillion of investment in less than 100 days.
George, your initial reaction to this reported investment in the U.S.?
So I think that it is good news to hear that there's some commitments, but I think we need to be realistic with those commitments and how many of those will actually go through. We also need to understand that as a country, that it's going to take time for these investments and that there is a trickle-down effect of these economic policies like in tariffs and bringing manufacturing here back to the United States. Is how long can the American people last with increased tariff prices and inflation and a shortage of supplies between now and that time that manufacturing is going to be done. And we don't have the workforce nor the infrastructure today to be able to service the American people.
Allison, what would you say to those concerns that George is bringing up?
Those are very practical, realistic concerns. Of course, we really believe in this policy, but the way that it was rolled out, there are some suggestions from industry leaders as well as economists. If we had rolled out some of these policies over a time frame, like George was mentioning, a few years, 3 to 5 years, so we can allow for the supply chain to be able to catch up to to the president's vision. In addition, we need to develop the workforce, right? Like TSMC. These are skilled laborers. We need to have trade schools that come up to train these types of skilled engineers. Right now, we're lacking that. So I think it's a great policy, but we can't do it right away. It has to be over a period of years to implement this vision.
Well, George, as we wait for, of course, time to pass and we watch what happens over the upcoming years, what do you expect the impact of these investments will ultimately be on the manufacturing landscape here?
I think it's too early to say what that's going to look like. I think as a country, we need to understand what makes sense for us to manufacture here in the United States. I mean, are we really trying to get in the business of making the cheapest jeans possible here in the United States when we know we can get that in Vietnam for $4 for a pair of jeans compared to what the labor cost is going to be here to be able to manufacture something like that? I think when we think about what we need to manufacture in chips and technology, we need to be the leaders in that, and that produces higher wages. It pushes people into wanting to be in that type of industry. But this very large blanket of tariffs really puts question in mind of what is it that we're fighting for and what makes more logical sense for the United States to invest in.
Allison, your background is Vietnamese. You have a lot of experience in terms of this country. How do you respond to George's point there that, the cheaper labor, it is in countries like Vietnam, not here in the U.S.?
Yes, I am Vietnamese American, and that's where my parents are from. I'm also based in Silicon Valley with a deep tech background, early Googler. I do agree with George and many of the critics that we need to focus on the high margin products that we're making in the U.S. and to move those manufacturing here. It's a priority. The typical hourly wage in Vietnam is $2 an hour, so we can't compete making Nike shoes, Adidas soccer balls, Lululemon t-shirts here in the US. And it's unclear if the American people want to work in those types of jobs we have to take a poll, but my sense is not really, or perhaps like immigrants, but those are not the immigrants that we want in our immigration policies. We want highly skilled immigrants. We want high skilled jobs that pay well in this country. So I don't necessarily think that we want to move all manufacturing in the U.S. I think it was a great idea and policy, but now we have to come back. POTUS waved a magic wand, and then all of a sudden we have $8 trillion, $5 trillion, depending on who you're looking at, whether Fox News or Bloomberg. So we have trillions of dollars investment in the US, but now let's take a step back and see what type of manufacturing. Now that we're in the lead seat for negotiation, let's see what type of jobs we really want to have in the US.
George, your response.
I can agree with that. I think that, again, it's the approach that's in question. I think the fundamental principle of bringing more American jobs, I think everybody can agree on that. And most times in government, what fails us is not necessarily the policy, it's the implementation of that policy. And that's where I think right now it's a real struggle for the president to implement these tariff policies and bringing manufacturing here without hurting the American people. But right now, what the president's asking for is for us to be able to bear a lot of this weight until this can actually happen. And so what will be the consequences? We're already looking at a recession. We're looking at people that can't afford the basic necessities. People are really worried about the instability in the market. We're seeing market losses. So in principle, I agree with it. It's the implementation that myself and I think a lot of Americans just cannot swallow.
Allison, to George's point there, how much of a significant difference does this policy of Made in America make to U.S. businesses?
I love that we have this branding, Made in America. I love what POTUS is doing, but I do agree with George. It needs to be rolled out in a more practical way. And I think, as we see this after 5 years, this is just an opening chess move. It's a very aggressive opening chess move by America and POTUS, where other countries have been very aggressive with us. And this is how we win in negotiation. Whether we actually implement this in the long term with the factories, the manufacturing, how people who shop at Walmart and Target will actually react to the higher prices. We need to give this strategy more time. We have 90 days. I think we're down to around 70 days. And then there's also the issue of China. Will they come to the table? Bottom line is that we're very aggressive with this. I agree with this type of negotiation skills. And we see $8 trillion being invested right now in the U.S., some foreign companies, some American companies. I think the next summit will be in the Rose Garden. It will be a job fair. Within 100 days, there are roughly 500,000 jobs created so far. So I think that will soften the blow of the higher prices, and hopefully the higher prices, the tariff issue will go away after the next 90 to 120 days, as I predict China will fold in the negotiation table.
Now, George, I want to get your take on this because you're the CEO of the Hispanic Construction Council. We also just saw Vice President J.D. Vance. He was just talking to steel workers in South Carolina, I believe. Trump's policies, how do they affect your sector specifically? What are you hearing from people around you?
Well, it affects us tremendously. I always tell people all roads lead to construction. We touch every major sector of the U.S. economy. And so the infrastructure that's needed for this investment is going to be off of the backs of the construction industry. So when we think about steel and technology and vehicles and apparel, we need all of those things. And right now what we're seeing is further delays of projects because projects are out of budget because of tariff increases. We're seeing a slowdown in the supply chain. We already, because of the labor shortage, we were already behind between 18 to 20% on projects. And through our recent study of our annual report, we're seeing an uptick now up to 30% delays in projects. So again, it's these policies that are really affecting us and the people that are going to make this happen. Yes, it's going to be those investors, but it's going to be the workers in the construction industry that actually make this happen. So I think that there is a better pathway to do this. I think that if the president really wants to look at a policy implementation, is having a balanced approach. You can start off tariffs at 2% and gradually increase it to its highest levels at the time that we know those manufacturing plants are up and ready. It gives us time to develop the workforce that we don't currently have. It gives us time to understand our immigration policies and what we need in order to be able to bring in the talent that we want into this country, or retain the talent that we currently have in our immigrant population. So unfortunately, this tactic, I think, just is one that is moving way too quickly, that I think that the president, to be quite honest with you, is going to run out of time as we're faced with another midterm in 2026.
All right, I've got around 30 seconds here. Allison, I'll let you respond to George, and then we'll finish up.
Yes. And so we have to see that the last 40, 50 years, the U.S. has always lost in the trade wars. So the president has his back to the wall. This was his best move, to be very aggressive, because the other countries, we've tried every approach. So I support the president in this. He has to be very aggressive. And he shows, look, in 100 days, $8 trillion in investment, 500,000 jobs created. Those are facts, and you can't refute that.
All right. Well, this was a very important conversation. Of course, we are only a little over 100 days into this presidency. I think there's still a lot for the president to hammer out. George Carrillo, Allison Huynh, thank you both so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having us.